You are carrying a weight that nobody around you can see. You try to explain it, you try to talk about it, you try to open up, and the person on the other side just doesn't get it. They even try to help, but their words don't reach the place where it actually hurts. And then you end up feeling more alone than you were before you even opened your mouth. If that sounds like you right now, this video is exactly for you. There is a type of pain that is almost impossible to explain. It is not just sadness. It is not just being tired. It is something that sits deep in your chest, that wakes you up in the middle of the night, that shows up right in the middle of a normal conversation, and makes you feel completely out of place in the world around you. And the worst part is not the pain itself. The worst part is when you try to share it with someone, and you realize that person just cannot reach the depth of what you are feeling. And then comes that feeling that you are completely on your own with this. But I want to tell you something today. There's a place where you can bring exactly that, without needing to find the right words, without needing to explain yourself perfectly, without needing to convince anyone that your pain is real. And that place is prayer, not as a ritual, not as a list of requests, but as an honest conversation with someone who already knows everything you are feeling before you even open your mouth. We live in a world that does not handle other people's pain very well. The people around us mean well, most of the time. But meaning well is not the same as being able to understand. When you go to someone and say, "I am not okay," the responses you get most often are, "But you have so much to be grateful for," or "Have you thought about how other people have it worse?" or just an uncomfortable silence that makes everything feel even heavier. And it is not necessarily those people's fault. Pain is a very personal thing. Each person carries theirs in a different way. What completely breaks you might be invisible to someone else. And that is one of the hardest things about being human. We cannot fully enter into anyone else's pain. We can only see it from the outside. So what happens to you? You start hiding it. You learn to smile in moments when you are falling apart on the inside. You start saying, "I'm fine," on autopilot, because you already know that if you tell the truth, you will have to sit through a response that is not going to help at all. And the more you hide it, the heavier it gets. It is a cycle that drains your energy, your drive, your will to get out of bed in the morning. Some people reach a point where they do not even pray anymore, because the pain is so heavy that even talking to God feels stuck. You sit down to pray, and you do not know what to say. Or worse, you feel like your prayers are not reaching anywhere, like they are falling into empty space, like God is not understanding either. But what if I told you that it is exactly in those moments, when you have no words, when the pain does not fit inside any explanation, that prayer can be more powerful than you can imagine. There is a verse in the book of Romans that changed the way a lot of people see prayer. It says that the Spirit intercedes for us with groans that cannot be put into words. Read that again. Groans that cannot be put into words. That means there is a form of prayer that goes beyond language. That when you are so broken, you cannot even put a sentence together, something is still happening spiritually. The Spirit of God Himself takes what you cannot say and turns it into prayer. That destroys the idea that you need to show up in front of God well-spoken. That your prayer needs to sound beautiful, organized, or make perfect sense. It does not. You can show up broken. You can show up with no words. You can show up crying without even knowing why you are crying. That is already prayer. That is already showing up. Now think about this with me for a second. When you are with someone you truly love, someone who knows you deeply, who has seen you at your worst, you do not need to explain as much. You show up in silence and they already get it. You send a one-word text and they already know what is going on. There is a level of closeness where words become almost unnecessary because the connection runs deeper than language. That is exactly the kind of relationship God wants to have with you. Not a relationship where you only show up when you have something well put together to say. A relationship where you can show up as you are, messy, exhausted, with no answers, with barely any faith left, and know that on the other side is someone who already knows you more deeply than any person on earth ever will. Psalm 139 talks about exactly that. It says God knows when we sit down and when we get up, that He understands our thoughts from far away, that He knows what we are going to say before we even say it. There is no hiding from Him. There is no surprising Him. He already knows. He already saw it. He is already there before you arrive. So when you sit down to pray and you do not know what to say, remember this: He already knows. You do not need to explain the pain. You do not need to justify why you are suffering. You do not need to convince God that what you feel is real and deserves attention. He already knows all of it, and He is already listening. But there is something else important here, and I need to be honest with you. A lot of people avoid praying in their deepest pain because, deep down, they are angry at God. They are carrying a hurt they will not even admit to themselves. Why did this happen to me? Why me? Where were you when I needed you most? And then prayer gets stuck because it feels disrespectful to show up angry in front of God. It feels wrong, but read the book of Job. Read the Psalms. David showed up in front of God with anger, with pain, with questions that had no answers. He did not show up with a gratitude script. He showed up yelling, sometimes, and God did not turn away. God received it. Because honesty, even if that honesty is, "I am angry at you right now," is better than silence full of pride. You can show up in prayer and say, "I do not understand what is happening. I am in pain, I am exhausted, and I am angry. But I am here." That is already a powerful prayer, because you are showing up. You are presenting yourself. And showing up, even in the worst possible state, is an act of faith. Now, there is something prayer does that no human conversation can do. Prayer, when you truly give yourself to it, begins to change your perspective. Not necessarily your situation, not in a magical instant way, but your perspective. You start to see your pain from a different angle. You start to realize that the thing that seemed to define you does not define you, that you are bigger than what is hurting you, that there is something beyond this moment, even if right now it feels impossible to see past it. And there is also what happens to your body during prayer. I am not talking about religion right now. I am talking about something simpler. When you stop everything, take a deep breath, and start letting out what is inside, whether out loud, whether in silence, whether through tears. Your nervous system starts to settle down a little. The tension you were carrying in your neck, your shoulders, your chest, starts to loosen up a bit because you finally stopped holding it in. You finally let it go. We spend the whole day holding things in, holding back emotion at work, holding back tears in traffic, holding back the urge to lose it in the middle of a meeting. And when you pray, truly, with full surrender, you stop holding on. You let go. And the relief that comes after that is not an illusion. It is real. Now I want to suggest something to you, something practical that you can do today. Find a place where you can be alone for at least 10 minutes. It can be the bathroom, it can be your car, it can be a corner of your room. Somewhere you will not be interrupted. Close your eyes, take a deep breath, and start talking, or thinking if you prefer, as if you were talking to someone who already knows everything, but who wants to hear it from you. Do not try to sound good. Do not start with, "Lord, I come before your presence," if that does not feel natural to you. You can start with, "Look, I am not okay. I am carrying a pain I can barely explain." Start from where you actually are. Start from your current state, not from the state you think you should be in. Talk about the pain. Talk about who hurt you. Talk about who did not understand you. Talk about the sleepless nights. Talk about the fear you have never admitted to anyone. Let it all out. Not with fear that it is too much. Not with shame that it is not a big deal. Let it out. And then, and this part matters, stay silent for a moment. Not necessarily to hear a voice from the sky, but to let that space of surrender settle in. Sometimes it is in that silence that an idea shows up. Sometimes it is a memory of something that gave you strength before. Sometimes it is just a lightness that slowly begins to arrive. It will not fix everything. I'm not going to lie to you here. You will finish that prayer, and the problem will still be there. The person who hurt you will still have said what they said. The hard situation will still be hard, but you will leave differently, lighter, a little less alone. Because you did not keep it inside anymore. You gave it away. And when you do this again, not just once, but make it a habit, something starts to shift inside you. Not dramatically, not overnight, but gradually, you start to have more strength. You start to see ways out where before you only saw walls. You start sleeping better, breathing better, treating the people around you better, because you stop being so full on the inside. That is what prayer does. It is not magic. It is a process. It is a practice. It is a relationship that gets built day after day, even on the days when all you bring is your pain. So let me go over what we looked at today. You are carrying a pain that the people around you cannot reach. That is real. That is hard. And that feeling of being cut off, of having something inside you that nobody can truly understand, is one of the heaviest experiences a person can have. But there is a way that does not depend on someone else understanding. That does not depend on someone having the right words. That does not depend on you being well-spoken or at your best. Prayer, honest, raw, unfiltered, is the space where you can show up exactly as you are and be completely received. You do not need to explain. You do not need to convince. You do not need to show up looking put together. You just need to show up and remember, the Spirit intercedes for you with groans that cannot be put into words. When you have no more words, there is still prayer. When you have barely any faith left, the act of showing up is already enough faith. Your pain is real. You are not making it up. You are not overreacting. And you are not alone in this, even if it feels like you are. If this video reached you today, subscribe to the channel. There is a lot more content like this coming.